Alberta Premier Rachel Notley is holding an emergency cabinet meeting just hours after she vowed to take legal action against the government of British Columbia. The quite suddenly ramped up tensions between the provinces are part of an ongoing dispute over the Trans Mountain pipeline expansion. Yesterday, BC announced restrictions that would effectively delay it and could kill it. Here's part of how Notley characterized that move.
Yesterday, the government of British Columbia took direct aim at the Alberta and the Canadian economy, acting outside the law.
The CBC's Terry Reith is in Edmonton and joins us now. Terry, what stood out for you in all of that?
Well, there are very strong words flying between these two Western NDP governments. Rachel Notley, in her scrum yesterday, expressing a sort of rage that we rarely see coming from the usually very level-headed Alberta Premier. But she is talking about undermining confidence in Canada's rule of law, in investment in Canada. She's talking about putting thousands of jobs at stake, millions of dollars at investment. She says that the BC government is violating the Constitution. I mean, this is very, very tough talk from this NDP Premier. And then going into that emergency cabinet meeting today, she talked about the sorts of actions that they could be considering taking. You mentioned one of them, which she talked about on an interview on CBC Radio this morning, which is taking immediate legal action. But she's also talking about a trade war, which we can get into later. But let's first hear what Rachel Notley said to her cabinet just before they kicked out the media.
We owe it to Albertans to do everything within our power to defend our jobs and our economic security. And we will not waver in this fight. So we will be calling on all Canadians and the federal government to support us in our work going forward. There is much at stake for working people, for the strength of our economy, and frankly, for the Canadian Federation as a whole.
Terry, those are tough words. And as you say, the sort of prospect of a trade war looming, where do you reckon it all goes from here?
Well, let's talk first about the trade war. BC has its own mega project that the NDP government belatedly got behind, called the Site C Dam. That's a massive hydroelectric project. Now, the Alberta government could go after that in one of two ways. One is to begin doing environmental assessments on this side of the border, again, delaying that project. The other thing is with Site C, BC is going to have an abundance of hydroelectricity. They're going to be looking for somewhere to sell that, and Alberta is the obvious customer for that. And if Alberta says, oh, we're not going to buy your power, that leaves BC in a very bad spot. So that's one area. The second thing is Notley is lining up allies. We saw a tweet earlier today from Scott Moe, the new Saskatchewan Premier, putting his support entirely behind Rachel Notley and the NDP government in Alberta, saying that the BC government is playing politics. And the third area, of course, is the federal government. This is federally regulated. This is a federally regulated pipeline. It gave its approval in November of 2016 to put this pipeline in. And now Notley is saying, you know, federal government, come on, step up right now and support us. Justin Trudeau in Edmonton tomorrow. So certainly we may be hearing more from him, and certainly he is going to be hearing a lot from the Alberta government.
I would imagine so, Terry. Thanks as always. The CBC's Terry Reith in Edmonton.